countless memories from those days. I mean, what was it like, sort of, on the old shows, Ready, Steady, Go and Top of the Pops and things?
Oh, it was great. Ready, Steady, Go was the best one because it was live. Went out live. It was performed live. Whereas Top of the Pops and the other shows was miming and it was taped. And, you know. But they were a very exciting time.
And what sort of memories have you got, I mean, of the Beatles?
Well, I mean, probably like everybody else's memories. I mean, just they were really fantastic.
Mm.
You know, the greatest thing that happened for a long, long time.
And was there a lot of socialising with all the big groups? I mean, you and the Beatles were the big names in those days. Did you all sort of get together in clubs and whatnot?
Yeah, in London there was clubs like called the Bag of Nails, Cromwellian, and these were like after our clubs. I went to maybe 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So if anybody was playing within the area of London, after that night off, we'd just all sort of descend in these clubs because they were quite well policed by bouncers and that. So you didn't get bothered with autographs and things like that. And we used to just drink till the early hours of the morning.
Never any sort of jam sessions or anything with groups?
Yeah, it was happening all the time. I mean, at that time, Georgie Fame was playing in the clubs, Chris Farlow, Yardbirds, John Mayall, and everybody used to just get up and sit in. It was great.
He's still about, isn't he, Chris Farlow? I see they're coming back to the Guildhall with, who is it, Chris Farlow and Zoot Money. He was a big name from the 60s,
yeah,
isn't he?
Right. He used to play a resident in a club down in London where we were down there. Mm.
And the Beatles and, of course, the whole Mersey thing cropped up, and then you came from Newcastle. I mean, was there much sort of rivalry between the areas and things, and trying to get the Newcastle thing against the Mersey beat and all that sort of stuff?
No, not really. I think maybe the newspapers and the music papers used to do something like that, but not really between the fellas in the band.
It was like when the Dave Clark Five toppled the Beatles off the #1 spot. I think there was a headline that Tottenham Sound conquers Mersey beat or something like that.
Yeah, well, that was just a bit of a hiccup, wasn't it?
He's had a bit of trouble with some musical, hasn't he? I think Dave Clark, and I remember reading something in the paper about that. Anyway, that's another story altogether. What about? I mean, the Animals had terrific success, both in this country and the States. I mean, you must have some fond memories, although I think there were troubled times too, weren't there, with personalities within the group?
Yes, there was
says he diplomatically.
A few personality problems, but I think it was expected, you know. I mean, 5 lads from Newcastle, all of a sudden, you know, making it. I mean, virtually overnight. I mean, there was a lot went on beforehand, but I think when you go from a situation where you've got all of your equipment on the hire purchase, you're screaming for people to take recognition of you, and then all of a sudden it happens, then you get all your equipment free and everybody wants to know you. It sort of goes to your head a bit, you know, and I think it did affect all of us.
The records, I think, still stand up very well, don't they? Some 60s songs sound a bit naff these days, but most of the old Animals tracks still, I mean, that one we just played, still sounds really good, doesn't it?
Well, I think that's the situation. In the 60s there were like 2 main kinds of music. You know, it was like the Liverpool scene, like the Searchers, Jerry and the Pacemakers and stuff like that. But there was also the harder hitting stuff like the Animals, Stones, Yardbirds. And when you listen to the 60s stuff, you know, I do find like the Searchers, now it does sound dated, but the R&B stuff, you know, the harder hitting stuff that came from the American blues is sort of like, you can play it forever, you know. It still sounds great and fresh. And it's like the band that I'm playing in now, the Alligators, were doing practically the same stuff as what the Animals were doing. Very exciting, powerful rhythm and blues. And it's amazing that even young kids today are picking up on it. It's fantastic.
And in the old days, I mean, like the Beatles, a lot of their influences came, records coming into Liverpool, early Motown stuff, that sort of thing.
That's right.
And I suppose was it the same in the Club of Go-Go days here, when in the Newcastle scene, that you were listening to import records and all this sort of thing, and picking up songs that at that time weren't really well known by and large by the public?
That's right, exactly. And I think a lot came in through Liverpool, naturally, because of the shipping lines. And I think Eric had a friend that lived down in Liverpool, and he used to get these records off the ships, you know.
Well, the Club of Go-Go was renowned, wasn't it? I mean, that was a very famous local landmark. I mean, there must be a lot of stories you could tell about that place.
Oh yeah, you know that the original stage from the Go-Go is still intact. A friend of mine, Jeff Brown at Tyne Tees,
Oh, yeah.
when they were actually closing the club down, he sort of leapt in there and made a bid for the stage and took it down to Tyne Tees.
Yeah, because there was a programme Tyne Tees did, didn't there, about the
Yes.
with all the old people from the club,
Yes,
the
yeah.
club, and so forth. What about America? What was that like touring the States?
It was quite tiring, but on the whole, quite enjoyable. I think the last tour of the Animals, when we got together in '83, we went over to America. It's just that they just love rock and roll music in America. You know, Britain's a bit more fad conscious. They'll go through various, you know, within a year they'll go through various different kinds of music. But in the States, people still love to boogie, you know, and just get up and listen to live bands playing rock and roll, and so it's great.
There's no possibility of another reunion then, is there? I mean, a lot of '60s bands are getting back together and touring around the place, but you're not planning another.
I very, very much doubt it.
What about the rest? I mean, is Eric Burden in the States now then, is he?
I believe so, yeah.
There's not much contact then between the...
No, I haven't spoken to Eric since '83. Chas is up here, lives in the northeast, and John Steele. Alan Price, still in London.
And this band that you've got together now, playing local clubs and pubs and so on?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And how's it going? Going well?
It's going great, yeah. It's like a new lease of life. And I think anybody that enjoyed the Animals and that kind of music should really come and see the Alligators, because it's happening all over again.
What about going back to the tours? I mean, in the '60s, you had those great big package tours, didn't you? Where
Yeah.
you had. I mean, I'm just actually looking at in this book about the Beatles. They've got, where is it?
Like 12 people all on
Yeah,
the same
there
bill.
was like Roy Orbison, the Beatles, and I've lost it here. But I mean, about, as you say, about 6 or 7, maybe more people all touring together. I mean, did everybody go around in a big bus together,
Yeah.
or
That's right, yeah. The first tour the Animals did was the Chuck Berry tour. And it is, yeah, all on the same bus and just travelling. The gear went separate. I remember one time we were coming up into Scotland, and we're sitting on the bus and we're talking to Chuck Berry, and we said, "Well, have you got your passport handy?" You know, and he said, "Well, passport, man, my passport's in the boot with my luggage." So, "Oh, you've got to have your passport when you go through Scotland through the border." He was getting all panicky.
it must have been? I mean, it must have been a thrill playing with somebody like that. I mean, presumably one of your heroes.
That's right, yeah. And Sonny Boy Williamson, we backed Sonny Boy Williamson on quite a few gigs. They wanted the Go-Go, and it was actually recorded. Did clubs in Manchester. I remember one time he had a briefcase with a bottle of Johnny Walker in it, and all of his harmonicas scattered everywhere. And he delved into his briefcase and pulled the harmonica out, and he says, "Don't stop me talking in C." And so we started playing. Then he came in, and it was totally out of tune. He re-looked at his harmonica, and he turned and says, "I said G," or something like that. You know, it was our fault.
What was it like coming back to? I mean, presumably you played the City Hall, coming back sort of when you'd made it. Was that a special thrill?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, naturally come back to our hometown, and I remember the reception that we got at the railway station was quite phenomenal. I mean, there was about 400 or 500 sort of followers all leaping around, and we're getting chased down this alleyway, and it was supposed to get into a car, and the car wasn't there. So it was like, but it was fun. Yeah.
Do you ever miss those days?
I don't miss them. I look back on them, with fond memories. Enjoyed them. Naturally, it was like living the dream that you had when you were a school kid. But there's a few of the things I could have done without.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Animals didn't come out of it with a lot of money, did you? Did you at the end of it?
No.
Was that being ripped off by managers and whatever?
Yes, all kinds of things. Yeah, it was just a big, gigantic rip-off. And when we screamed for money, they used to just throw a few pounds, and keep us quiet and shut up. But yeah.
If it had happened in the 80s, you'd have. I mean, bands are much more together these days, aren't they, financially, and don't they tend to be better organised that way?
I believe so. Yeah, I think they must have the solicitors and lawyers, there on the spot.
Well, listen, fascinating to talk to you, and tell us where the band's playing. Have you got some regular gigs, the Alligators?
Diary.
Get it now, get the diary out.
Here comes the diary. Well, next week is the next gig. 20th of April, the Buzz Club in Stanley. 27th of April, the High Point, Colour Coats. 2nd of May, the Corner House. 5th of May, King's Head, Stanley. Do one more. May 10th, the Dun Cow in New York.
Right, and I know I played an Animals track a few weeks back on the programme, and we were talking about what the various band members were doing, and somebody rang up within seconds and said, "Oh, Hilton's got the band and he's playing." I forget which one it was. One of the pubs you mentioned there, I think that they mentioned.
Dun Cow, I think.
Dun Cow, yeah. So great to know it's going well. We'll play another track. This, I think I'm right in saying, was the B-side of "Baby Let Me Take You Home." Going to Send You Back to Walker.
That's right.
Which was it was an old song, wasn't it? But
it's an old song. It was called "I'm Going to Take You Back to Georgia."
Right.
Eric changed the lyric.
Still sounds good too. Hilton, thanks very much indeed for coming in this morning.